And I thought I had arrived in heaven with the music, because in the car where the acoustics and all were so confined, it really sounded good for those days when everything sounded like coming out of a tin can. The first radio, I know there were radios in cars before then, but the first radio in a car was my dad owned a 1955 Dodge Coronet. And so when I got into high school, it had no radio, it had no air conditioning, it did have a heater. So I decided, me and a friend of mine, we decided we'd go to a junkyard and buy a radio to put in the car. Well, radios in those days had vacuum tubes in them. So in order to generate the voltage you needed, they had a little device in a car radio called a vibrator. And what this vibrator did was, it was a relay that made and break, and it buzzed. It was like a motorized relay. And then they had the contact points, which would make and break the 12 volts. And then a transformer, as the pulses were generated by the vibrating of the vibrator, then it would step the voltage up so there would be voltage for the plates of the radio. And of course the filaments ran off of the regular battery, so you didn't need anything for that. And so I bought one, and that thing sat there and it buzzed. It was right aggravating, but all young fellows in my class wanted a radio in the car in case they went out on a date and they could listen to the radio. Well, you had to be careful leaving the radio on, because it drew so much current off the battery. You really kept cranking the vehicle up, it wouldn't crank if you let it stay on too long, but most of the time you did all right. So that was the first experience I had, is I bought, and I'm trying to remember, but I think I paid $30 for and back then $30 would be $300 or so dollars now. And it was an AM only radio. There was no FM. FM radio was established sometime, and transmitting started sometime in about 1959 or maybe 60. And at that time they used what they call converters, and they converted the signal from FM to AM and fed it into the antenna jack of the AM radio, and then you had FM. But you were limited by the bandwidth of the innermost components of the AM radio, which was fairly narrow. But anyway, later on they found out a way to demodulate the FM on a regular car radio, and all that changed. The frequency responses and everything became great, and everybody liked FM radio. So radio in the cars, not many cars except upper end cars. In fact, none of them, all cars came without a radio. You paid extra for the radio, and in many cases extra for the heater in the car. And in some cases you paid extra if you wanted 2 windshield wipers instead of 1. So I mean, things were a whole lot different than they are now, and that's the radio part of the younger days of the radio. Prior to then, people would take little portable radios, battery operated radios, sit above on the dash and use them most of the time when they parked or whenever they were at the beach or somewhere like that. But that's the way that worked. Of course, they were all tubes, tube radios, and so you had to have voltage to supply for the high voltage needed for the plate, so that the current would flow from the part of it to the output of the tubes, so you could generate a signal. You could order 6x9 or 4x7, I forget now. Whatever they were, you could order them. You didn't go to the store, you had to order them from somewhere. There was nothing available. And I ordered 2 6x9 speakers and put in the back of that car. And I thought I had arrived in heaven with the music, because in the car where the acoustics and all were so confined, It really sounded good for those days when everything sounded like coming out of a tin can. So now everybody knows you're out walking along and here comes a car, boom, boom, booming, sound like thunder in the distance. And the audio has really changed,
I think we all have a new appreciation for how difficult it was to install a car radio back in the 1950s. Appreciate you, Pops, for doing that. Let's move on to my first stereo system. That's right, 1978 Ford Courier. If you're not aware of these were imported for Ford by Mazda back in the 70s all the way into the early 80s. Same as the Mazda B1800 is what I had. And here it is. Take a look at this. That's right. This thing was rattle can painted, 4-speed transmission. And there you see it, the Sony CD player. This was the Sony CDX 7520. It was a CD tuner head unit, which means did not have any built-in power, which is not abnormal for back in the day. A lot of the head units did not have built-in power. Now behind the seat, I had the subwoofer box, but unfortunately could not flip forward this bench seat unless both doors were open. Here we can see the Blue Thunder by MTX, BTW 1044, 10-inch subs, 2 of them, in a sealed enclosure about 1 cubic foot per speaker. Now these had a 10-year warranty back in the day, and these were highly regarded. In fact, in a car audio and electronics, actually won the shootout with 7 different subwoofers. The Blue Thunder 10, these were very popular. And yes, we all dreamed of having a much fancier system like the one shown here as well. Now for the door speakers, these were Jensen door speakers, and it's really hard to tell here, but these doors were super thin, so you could not use a very big driver. This is only a 4-inch speaker, and I actually found a picture of some on eBay. The J1283s, 30 watts power, 5-ounce magnet. Yeah, these were beef, as you can see here. Definitely a cone, so it's not really even a two-way speaker. But hey, they work for what it was. And to power those, we had the Delta Sonic D40, because remember, the head unit did not have any built-in power. Of course, we had to have an amp for the subwoofer as well. First one I purchased was the Alphasonic PMA 2100, not the iX version shown here, but still, this was the amp. Now, I actually showed a video of this. I made a video of this a while back. I'll leave a link in the video description below. This thing did a little bit less than 80 watts, or a little bit less than 70 watts per channel at 4 ohms. It was rated 100 watts. Now let's give a short demo here of how this thing sounded, and we'll see if it got some boom on. Yeah, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't a bumper either, but it was fun. Now later I moved these MTX Blue Thunder 10s into a 3 cubic foot per side ported box, and that one really slammed. Unfortunately, I don't have any video of that. I do appreciate you guys watching. Leaving me a comment below, thumbs up, subscribing if you like this. And I also like to know, what was your first system? Let me know in the comments below. Tell me about all the different components. If you've made a video about it, go ahead and let us know your channel, and we will go over there and check out the video. Would love to see if you have some old Polaroid pictures or whatever. Throw it together. Till next time, this is Big D. I'm out of here.